Hi and welcome to the Corporate Warriors podcast. My name is Fela Rosa, and in this episode I'm gonna talk with you about how to sell yourself in order to advance in your career. So, selling yourself is a huge topic, and there are many things that people object or why they do not want to sell themselves. And in the end, the only people that are actually losing because of that are themselves. So I think this is a really crucial topic for everybody to understand and to work on themselves in order to reach their goal of their dream career. So selling yourself can have many different facets to it. And I want to really talk about the way you can sell yourself, for instance, in job interviews, in salary negotiations, or during your everyday professional life. And there are different reasons to why that is so important. And most and foremost, this is important because people are busy. And your boss is busy too. And they will not invest a lot of time in thinking about your performance. Yes, from time to time, there are the performance reviews. Yes, they do that, but just imagine a normal everyday life of your boss. There's a lot of issues coming up each day, and normally the objective of your boss is to solve their own challenges. So let's say you are in a team of 10 people, so there are 9 people more to you that could potentially create challenging situations. There's a boss or multiple bosses in dotted line situations that increase the amount of challenges that your boss faces each day. So they do not think about you as much as you would perhaps like. And it's important for you to position yourself each and every single day as the employee that you want to be, as the person how you want to be seen and perceived within your organization. So that is the very first and foremost point. You need to sell yourself constantly and position yourself constantly, because if you do not do that, your points will be less relevant in the everyday situation. And if you just point it out once in a while, what you're doing and why that is helping the organization, that is simply not enough. People are so busy. If you just compare it to social media, you could potentially send out the exact same message on your account each and every single day, and only 1 or 2% of your followers, your friends, would notice. Why? Because there's such an overflow of information. So much is going on these days that people forget. We are really trained right now to be really in short life cycles, let's say, right? On social media, it's just a perfect example because you can really measure that really well there. I mean, videos that are longer than 10 seconds barely get any views anymore because people are so bored. So imagine how it is in the rest of your life. You have plenty of things to do. You have your family, you have your friends, you have perhaps a pet, you have your job, you have a car. Anything can go wrong at any time, right? Even if it's just your car breaking down, that can create major hurdle for you. And the same for your boss. They have a life next to their professional life. They already have to deal with all of the stress, all of the things of what's going on in their job. They have to position themselves as well. They might deal with issues that you have no idea of. And in addition to that, they have a private life. They have things that they need to cope with, that they need to manage. So it's just really important to constantly reposition yourself because people are really busy. And even if you do something great once, that might be forgotten overall a little bit if you don't remind people of what you're constantly contributing to the company or to the department's objectives. And lastly, the only person that is benefiting from positioning themselves is you. And you want to advance in your career, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't listen to that podcast. So the only person who is also feeling the pain of not positioning themselves and of not selling their own skills and what they contribute to the company is also you. So you'd rather learn and figure out how to position and sell yourself and your skills in order to advance in your career the way you're supposed to. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about the different reasons why people don't like to position themselves, why they don't want to talk about their own accomplishments. and also potential ways how to solve those. And if you're currently not sure if you have an issue with it or not, there's easy ways to find that out. Usually the best indication if you're somebody who does not like to sell their own qualities, their own accomplishments, are the people that hate it if others do that. If you have that one colleague that constantly talks about what she or he has been doing for the company, and you're really getting mad at them and fed up, that is a red flag. And it's a red flag in many senses. Yes, it can be that this colleague is just completely overdoing it, right? Constantly talking about the same old, which is not what you're supposed to be doing. This is not what I would recommend you to be doing. Don't talk about the accomplishment that happened 1 month ago over and over. That's just annoying, and I totally get it. But overall, if you're just really annoyed at people for selling themselves, there's a really, really good possibility that you are constantly underselling and not talking enough about your accomplishments and how those accomplishments help the company to advance and to reach their objectives. And if you really think about it, that's the value that you bring to your employer, right? They don't hire you just for fun. They hire you in order for you to help the company reach their objectives. So you have to constantly remind people of how that is happening. That way your relevance is increasing in the company, which also means that in times of potential layoffs, you are safer than people that do not talk about their accomplishments. And yes, I know, there's always exceptions to the rules. There are these people that don't talk about their geniuses and everybody knows they are. But for the average kind of employee, that doesn't hold true. And the average kind of employee does contribute a lot, but if they don't promote themselves and promote their accomplishments and have no freaking idea about how their work and their projects contribute to the company's overall success, it's them suffering in terms of when hard times come and a manager has to present a list to HR of the people that they potentially would let go. You have a higher probability to be on that list as well. And let's just talk worst case scenarios. It's also in terms of promotions. If your manager is writing up a list for potential promotions or salary increases, you want to be known by your manager in your manager's head as the person that constantly contributes additional value to the team, to the company, that helps your manager reach their objectives. Okay? So it really goes into both directions. And now in the second part, we're going to take a look why people don't want to promote their own skills and their own accomplishments. There are 5 main reasons that I would like to go into today. And then also potential possibilities, how you can counteract and how you can get out of the situation where you can, in a natural and sane way, present yourself and present your accomplishments and your achievements to your manager and to HR, to whomever you want to present it to. So the first reason that I want to dive into today is modesty. People think that they need to be modest all of the time. And while this is an amazing character trait, and it does come from a good place, it is not really helpful for you if you're overusing it. Very often people learn that during their childhood. So those kinds of character traits that are deeply rooted inside us, that also have this potential of triggering us if somebody else has a completely different opinion than we do, are rooted in our childhood. And I'm not talking about trauma, I'm really just talking about the possibility that your parents, for instance at dinner, were talking bad about their colleague at work who was promoting him or herself. So you were listening to that constantly. Perhaps your father complaining about a neighbor who keeps on talking about his great new car that he was able to buy because of a promotion or a new job. Perhaps you really got it ingrained in your subconscious that it's not good to talk too much about the things that you've achieved, that you have done, because it could be seen as arrogant. And arrogant was perhaps the worst thing for your parents. If somebody came across as arrogant, they would not like that person. And now imagine what that does to a child. If your parents don't like you, that basically is a death sentence to a child in the child's psyche. So what do children do? They really try to make it work. They try to be good children. They try to live up to their parents' standards and ideas. And the issue is that this is so deeply ingrained that later in life, we still follow the same patterns. We still evaluate life based on how our parents used to evaluate certain situations. But we're not aware of it. And this is where the important part starts. If you consciously decide to live your life in a certain way, then I applaud you for it and it's great. Really continue and stay true to yourself. But if you live life without really knowing based on what rules you're living it, the chances are just that you're creating a life that is not fulfilling for you, because the rules based on which you created your life are not your own. So you're basically, doing things without knowing why, but then also not getting the results that you might want without knowing why either. So this is all about awareness. Is modesty a huge value for you? If so, ask yourself why. Where does it come from? And then see if that, what you've learned in the past, really holds true here. If you talk about the things that you did at work that were actually helping, I'm not talking about selling something, I'm breathing. Don't tell me you're breathing. I really hope you do and you continue doing it, but I don't want to hear about it, okay? But if you really do accomplish things, if you really do help the company reach their objectives, then this is not the same thing. And you should just continue talking about that and continue on searching for the points where you help the company. That way you rewire also your brain into helping more and more and being really on the right track of increasing your worth to the company, because you increase the company's worth overall by your work through the things that you're doing. All right, so that is the first point. Now let's go to the second point. And the second point is also a really, really common one. And it's like people that don't want to talk about their own accomplishments very, very often just have big, big issues with their self-confidence. And this is something that can be fixed. Self-confidence that you have right now is based on the experiences that you made in the past. And unfortunately, our brain is really good in remembering all the things that went wrong, whereas remembering all the great achievements that we've made, all things that went great for us, where we're just very, very lucky and where we should be grateful, we forgot them. How many times have you been in the car and all of a sudden you start thinking about the situation that was just awful, where people made fun of you for saying something wrong, pronouncing something wrong, where you did something funny, but you really felt horrible afterwards. You really felt you were making a fool of yourself. Those situations kind of keep on popping up, am I right? And I bet you that there are minimum as much, if not more, situations where you did the opposite, where you did not make a fool of yourself, but where people really respected you for something great that you've been saying or what you have been doing. But you don't remember those. You never drive in the car and all of a sudden you think of the situation where you were a genius, right? It never happens to me. It never happens. But I can tell you about many situations where I'm like, Jesus, why did I do that? And it's literally 10 years ago and nobody cares. But our brain is just really, really good in remembering those incidents and bringing them up kind of often. So what we do in order to increase our self-confidence is actively train our brain in remembering things that we did right, where we had success, where we did get amazing feedback. And one way to do that is to have a success journal, to really start focusing your brain on all the things that you were doing right, that just went great. And that's also why in my career journal, I have a specific section for that. So each day, you're gonna think about the successes of the day, and you're gonna also think about the things that you wanna do differently tomorrow. That way you make sure that you do remember all the things that went well, because you train your brain to do it. And you don't get too cocky and gutsy about it, because yes, there's also stuff that we can improve and that we should improve in order to advance in our careers. So that's just a great way. And the good thing is, in this journal, for instance, it's a 90 days journal. So you can go back, right? In times where you feel that your self-confidence is just really, really low, I would encourage you to go back to those success moments of the past, because I guarantee you, you would not remember them if they hadn't been written down. Okay? So that's a great way to increase your self-confidence, not by saying that you did things that you didn't do, but by actively writing down the facts. Writing down the successes that you had, even the small ones, and training your brain in remembering them as well. Now, the third point, the third reason why people struggle with that topic is because they feel a huge uncertainty. They're not sure if it was actually good or not. And especially people that struggle with the self-confidence part, they also have this issue very often where they're like, I'm just not sure if it was that good. Like, it was perhaps a teamwork situation, so can I really attribute that to my own accomplishments? And they start to doubt themselves more and more. And if you go into the spiral of doubt, that's just never a great situation to be in. And it's definitely not helping you to sell your own accomplishments. So here we have a pretty similar thing that we can do, which is to, for instance, actively take screenshots. So in the self-confidence part, what I was suggesting is that you write down all the things that went well from your perspective. So that could even be, I was working great in the team and I was helping out a team member to achieve something. Even if you don't promote it right at this point in front of your boss, it is an achievement for yourself. Whereas here in the uncertainty part, we can totally eradicate that by you taking screenshots of great feedbacks. So what I did is whenever somebody in my team or from my colleagues was sending me a note that just made my heart jump a little bit, like saying that I was a great team player or saying that I was contributing a lot in a meeting and it was really helpful. For instance, it could be that people were seeing me in a light that I have never seen myself before. I would take screenshots of that specific feedback from that person and then put that screenshot in a Google document, a private Google document of mine. And that way, whenever I feel down or I'm not sure if my value is actually what I thought it was, I can go to that Google document as well. And these documents can grow over time. They can grow over years. And you will see that the more you're aware of what you're contributing, the more also other people start being aware of your contribution. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's getting better and better and better. You just have to start. Now, the fourth point of why people have struggled promoting their own skills and selling their own skills is communication. And communication is really, really important. And I fully understand that either in a situation where you promote yourself or perhaps in a situation where you talk critically about something that happened at work, it is very important that you manage your communication. It's really all about learning by doing. So you can go online, you can see a lot of videos about great communication, about how to use communication in your favor. One book that I just love is How to Win Friends and Influence People, a book by Dale Carnegie, an amazing mind, an amazing book that I think everybody in business should be reading or have read at some point. It's really a book that you can circle back to on a yearly basis, because it just brings so much value and it's showing how you can positively communicate even in critical situations or situations that feel critical or new to you, and bring the biggest value for both parties. And then when that works and you feel that you did a great job communicating, then you go back and write that into your success journal. It all makes sense, doesn't it? So last but not least, big topic, cultural differences. Yes, they are huge, especially in selling your own skills. So what is seen as arrogant versus normal very much depends on culture. So as you know, I'm German, living in the US. And for me, it was really interesting to understand how Americans perceive themselves and how they talk about themselves and how they also promote themselves. And I found it really inspiring because in Germany, we have big issues talking about our own accomplishments, and we have to be really, really delicate and careful in our communication around that. without being seen as no arrogant, as something negative per se. Whereas in the US, it's really more bold, it's more in your face. And please consider that when talking with your boss, your manager, or your colleagues. Where do they come from? What cultural background do they have? Sometimes you could be a remote worker working in Europe, but you're working for a US company, or vice versa. So here I really urge you to stay really aware. Stay aware of how others are talking. How does your boss talk about herself, and how does she talk about the other people and their accomplishments in the company? And try to adapt a little bit to that level, because cultural differences can be huge, and you wanna know what cultural language, so to speak, your boss or your manager is speaking. And then you adapt to that. So to sum up that podcast, we were talking about different ways how you can start selling your own skills more. I did a previous episode on how to identify your unique skills and your value ultimately that you bring to the table. So please listen to that in order to find out what you should promote. Here you got some really hands-on examples of how you can work on yourself in order to be able to sell your own skills, promote yourself, and in the end, you just have to do the work. It will not come to you naturally if you invest 0 minutes of your time into it. You don't learn an instrument by looking at it. You have to actually play it. And I hope that in this episode I was giving you some really hands-on, easy to use pieces of advice in order for you to implement that and get the most out of your skills. Get the most out of what you actually already are contributing to the company for yourself, for your salary negotiation, for your new job interview, or just in order to stay top of mind of your boss, so that everybody understands that you see the bigger picture, you know how to contribute with your value to the value of the company, and that way position yourself as an employee that everybody wants to keep, even if times are getting hard. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Check out the workbook that I will put into the bio. It's a really cheap one and will just help you to get used to thinking in a new way and rewire your brain in a way that is helpful for you in your career. I hope to see you next week. Stay safe, stay sane, and I hope you learn to promote yourself in the meantime. See you then.